Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 250 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices of podcasts out there, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of those choices. If you are enjoying this podcast, though, I would love you to take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me at Jen Donovan, because that would be super cool to be able to follow you on social media and follow your small business journey as well. Of course, you can find the show notes for today's episode before we get into it at all the W's, social media and marketing.com.au. Just wondering if you've had a chance to listen to last week's episode. My guest last week was Nikki Kelly, and she was talking all about courses and the tech behind building your online course in your business. It was a really great episode. If you haven't listened to that one, head back to episode 249 after, of course, you listen to this episode. Of course, you can find that podcast, episode 249, at socialmediamarketing.com.au/249. But again, before I get started, I wanted to give a shout out to this week's podcast sponsor.
Hi, Kate Toon here, just jumping into Jen's podcast to tell you about my new book, 6 Figures in School Hours: How to Run a Successful Business and Still Be a Good Parent. It's packed with practical and doable tips for parents to be more productive, make serious money, and not burn themselves to a frazzle in the process, with actionable advice and inspiring stories to help you create a successful business and never feel like the worst parent in the world ever again. Order today at sixfiguresinSchoolhours.com.
Now, sorry to be, and again before I get started, but I've got a great guest, Erin Huckle, on for you today. But I really wanted to take a moment to celebrate the fact that this is episode 250. I started this podcast way back in 2018, and I thought I'd be lucky to get to episode 30. And that is the honest truth. I had 27 episodes mapped out. And then I thought, you know what, I'll probably get a couple of guests on, but I thought I would soon run out of things to say. But apparently talking is my jam, and here we are at 250. I always tell my community that we should celebrate stuff more often, I should say. So this is me popping my pineapple juice because it's too early for Pepsi Max or champagne. It's me raising my glass to myself and saying cheers to myself, because I'm pretty freaking proud of this podcast. I'm proud of everything it's done for my business. I'm proud of the people that I've managed to connect with because of this podcast, whether that be a listener or an amazing guest. So yeah, I'm just going to celebrate 250 episodes all by myself here, but I'm raising a glass of pineapple juice to myself. Now, if you happen to have been a person who's listened to 250 episodes, then I freaking love you. But if not, I still love you as well. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for allowing me to have this little bit of a celebration of 250 episodes. Like I said, this episode isn't about me. It's about my guest today, Erin Huckle from Chuckle Communications. And for those of you playing along at home, yes, this is a podcast interview followed by a podcast interview, which isn't normally what I do. But A, I'm currently on holidays, and B, I have so many amazing interviews to get through to put out live from some stunning guests, such as my guest today, that I just needed to start scheduling a few more interviews in. So today, it's Erin Huckle. She's the founder of Chuckle Communications and is in the business of raising profiles for her clients through proactive PR, amazing award entries, and compelling written content. And of course, the episode today is titled Raising Your Profile. Yes, your profile. So that's what she's here to talk to us about. She works with innovative, ethical, and creative small businesses and leaders to help them find their voice and to tell their stories. And we all have stories to tell. Her focus is on helping clients connect with their ideal customers by turning up where they actually hang out. So, yes, I'm here for it, sister. Thank you, Erin. Erin is also a mum to three boys. She lives in Wollongong and spends any snippets of spare time doing some reading, yoga, or being outside in nature, taking a few deep breaths. So, no more delays. Here's my chat with Erin. Hey, Erin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's a pretty exciting topic we're going to talk about, being awards and raising profiles and all sorts of things. So, welcome.
Thanks so much, Jen. It's great to be here.
Yeah, excellent. Now, Erin, we have actually managed to meet in real life as well, which is not something I get to say with all my guests. But for my beautiful listener who may not have come across Erin Huckle or know about Chuckle Communications, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I'm Erin Huckle from Chuckle Communications. And I always say I'm in the business of profile raising, which kind of encompasses a few different things. So I do PR work for my clients, helping them get media exposure and get their name out there through sort of those kinds of opportunities. But I also do a lot in the award writing space. And I also help my clients really connect with their audiences through really well-written content. So that might be things like helping them land articles in the media and then writing those articles on their behalf, or even just nailing their pitch when it comes to, really distilling down who they are and what they do and why they're awesome at it, because it can be really hard to do that for yourself. So I love helping people get really clear on that message. And I particularly love working with female-led businesses that really have a strong purpose behind what they do. So businesses who are ethical or sustainable or really innovative and making positive change in the world, because I like to help think I can amplify that through the profile raising work I do.
Yeah, right. There's so much to unpack in just that short little conversation that you've just had with us. Oh my goodness, so much. I'm doing a course at the moment through one of my other businesses, and it's a VC course, so like a fundraising type of course, and we have to do an elevator pitch. It's really hard to actually get your pitch right. There is so much that you want to say, and yet, obviously, with an elevator pitch, the idea is that you should be able to say it in the time you're riding in an elevator. And they're getting faster and faster, those little things. So you have to say it faster and faster. So, yeah, that sort of is really interesting to talk about the elevator pitch. But you mentioned PR before. So perhaps for my listener who's kind of like, well, what do you mean by PR? What is PR for you? What does that look like for you and your clients?
So PR is public relations, and I've been in the PR sector for around 20 years now, which makes me feel a little bit like a dinosaur. I remember sending out press releases in my first job in the mail. And we used to print them on colored paper in the hope that they would stand out on the desk.
Oh my goodness, that's so good.
It wasn't my idea. I can't claim it, but I hope it worked. So PR really, the kind of PR I help my clients with is around getting them earned media opportunities. And by that, I mean things that you don't have to pay for. So it's not advertising in that you're not paying to have that magazine or that website or that podcast or radio outlet talk about you and your business. Instead, you are coming to them with an angle or an idea or a news story that is so good they can't resist running it. And you get that sort of really great boost in credibility and authority by having the media share your story. And the media landscape has changed a lot in 20 years, obviously, and the kind of digital media we had back then, and it's, evolved. We didn't have podcasts, it's kind of all around traditional radio shows, and there was a lot more focus on print media, and obviously those still have a place today. But I think the way that the media has changed means that there are a lot more opportunities for people to use PR to, be part of their marketing mix and to help them raise their profile, get more visible, connect with new audiences. And a lot of the online media are also really hungry for content because they're trying to, work within that 24-hour news cycle, trying to serve up new things to their readers and followers all the time. and they're looking for experts to share opinions or advice. And that's where I love to help my clients, you know, work out what is your point of difference, what's something that's really interesting you could talk about. And often we're so close to our own stories that it's hard to do that. A bit like the elevator pitch, you know so well what you do inside and out, but when you put on the spot and in that elevator with someone for a few seconds, you know, how do you really distill it down? And some of the work I do with my clients when I do PR work with them, a big part of working together is that first initial, you know, those first initial sessions we have together where we really pull out what are the stories, what are the ideas, you know, what are the topical things that they could talk about, what are the experiences they've had that they could share and other people could learn from, and how could they sort of add, you know, rather than just adding noise, but really add value to the conversations that are happening out there, especially in the media landscape. And it really does build credibility. You know, I think getting media coverage is so fantastic for any business owner or founder or entrepreneur, because you then, you know, get to be in the position of putting things like as seen in the media logos on your website to add credibility. You get to share those clips and pieces of content on your social profiles and across your marketing channels. So yeah, it's just a really great tool, and it's a big part of the profile raising work I do.
Yeah. So you've mentioned profile raising a couple of times, and you just mentioned then about, you know, I guess showing your expertise and things like that. And I think as small business owners or entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, we have a really bad habit of underestimating what we know that other people would like to know. But is profile raising or PR, and we haven't even got to awards yet, but, you know, entering awards, is that really, is it for extroverts and experts, or are they kind of ways that people who perhaps are a little bit more introverted or don't realize their expertise, are there ways that they can get on the PR bandwagon and get some press and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that is often a barrier that people have in front of them. They think,
It
well, I'm
is.
not the world leading expert in this, or, you know, I've only been in business for a few years, or, you know, they struggle to see how they can put themselves out there. And it is a bit scary. You know, we all have a bit of a fear of rejection. That's only natural. We're human. So contacting a journalist out of the blue and saying, I think I should write an article for you on this topic is really, really scary. And I guess for the introverts out there who are feeling like, well, I'm not someone that would ever put myself out there and be in the spotlight, I always say to flip it and think about, you know, how could you help people through sharing your story? So rather than it being about, you know, I'm showing off and talking about how great I am, it's actually, well, what do I know? What expertise do I have that could help someone out there? Even if it's just helping one person, that's really powerful. So, you know, flip the script in that way. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be an extrovert. You know, I think we all have amazing lived experiences. You know, think about the stories that you share when you catch up with people in a social setting. Sometimes they can be great ideas for the media. You know, it might be that you've had a really interesting transition. You used to be a vet and now you're a radio presenter, or I don't know. That's not a great example.
An astronaut. Let's go high.
Exactly. But, you know, maybe you've had a really interesting career change, or maybe you have a unique context in the way that you work, or maybe working for yourself has taught you something. You know, before we started recording today, we were talking a little bit about when we're most productive. And for me, being an entrepreneur, one of the most enlightening things has been learning about my chronotype and when I work best. And for me, I'm an early bird. But back in my kind of corporate life, I had to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and try and be super productive in those hours. Well, now I can be flexible, and actually I often get up really early and do deep work in the morning because that's when my brain works best. Obviously, everyone's different. So there might be lessons that you've learned that you find yourself talking about, you know, in social settings that could be really interesting to a media outlet. But it could also be that you have made mistakes and you want other people to learn from your mistakes. You know, it's okay to admit you got something wrong. And that's why I love things like, you know, I'm an avid listener to podcasts like what's it called, How to Fail, or the one that Elizabeth Day runs. But, you know, there are podcasts out there and different outlets that focus on things like failure and what sort of successful people have learned from failing. it could be, the 3 biggest mistakes I made in my first year of business. I'm sure all of us could come up with something along those lines. Get creative and think about what you're doing that's a little bit different, or the purpose behind what you're doing. Maybe you had a really tough experience that then led you to starting your business, or maybe you're driven to do what you do because you're trying to make a positive change. So, I think, we all have a story to tell. I really do believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I remember quite some years ago, one of my mentors, David Penglaze, who is an amazing speaker and just has a mind that is just completely mind-blowing what he knows. But I remember talking to him about, and I was nervous about putting myself out there and putting my story out there, and he basically called me selfish. Jenny, stop being so selfish. You have to share what you know. It's up to you. You've learned this, and this is your way of helping people. That really hurt. Like, because I would say I'm not a selfish person at all. So to be called selfish, that was kind of like, well, I'll show you how unselfish I am.
Yes. And we're on
And
a podcast to prove it.
that's right. But it was a really good piece of advice, which, has just always stuck with me. So I guess, for my listener who might be thinking, what could I share? It's just like, well, a lot, and stop being selfish. Maybe that's your nudge today.
Yeah.
But as we go, as this recording goes out live, we are pretty much, I think, going to be slap bang in the middle of what I would call awards season. So we've kind of spoken a little bit about PR as far as profile raising goes, but entering awards, and even not winning awards, but just the exercise of entering an award, is a really good way of profile raising. And I know you and I are on the same page here, but you are the expert. So can you talk a little bit to us about entering awards and why you should, and just a few little tips and tricks around that?
Yeah, I love that you said it's not just about winning the awards, because I always say that to people who are thinking about including awards in the sort of marketing activity they do. I think, again, we can get in our own way because we think, well, there's no point entering. I won't win. I know it's really competitive. And again, we're being selfish because we're not letting the world, we're not, there's no chance of winning if we don't enter. You've got to be in it to win it, as the saying goes. But I find the exercise of entering an award, especially if you've not entered one before, it is incredibly valuable for any business, no matter what stage you are, no matter what kind of sector you're working in. I think, especially for those founders and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, how often do we actually sit and reflect on what we've achieved in the time we've been in business? Like, we're so busy doing all of the things for everyone else, for our customers, for our clients, and we're just, on that busy hamster wheel. I think awards are a really valuable opportunity to reflect on what you've achieved. They're a great opportunity to, really pull together some data to reflect on, what kind of growth have you enjoyed over the recent years? What kind of challenges have you managed to make it through? What have you learned from those? What kind of impact have you made? And they're also a really, really great opportunity to reach out to clients who might not have given you feedback or testimonials yet, and say to them, I'm actually putting myself out there. I'm entering this award, and I realized I never got a testimonial from you after we worked on that project. I'd love some feedback from you. So they're a great exercise. And I also say to anyone entering, once you've written that entry, you don't just file it away and forget about it. Some of the award programs, they're all very different, but often they are asking you to answer really big questions about your business and write content about your business that you can repurpose in other ways, which I'm sure you agree, Jen, like, that's gold for your marketing. You've got posts you can pull from it for LinkedIn. You can turn it into content for your newsletter. You can repurpose it and make it a blog. The biggest challenges I've overcome in the last 2 years of my business. There are so many great ways to repurpose that content. So that takes the pressure off entering as well. I think it's not just about, I'm entering this because I want to be a winner. It's about, I'm entering this because I want to reflect on my business, and then off the back of it, I'll have some great content I can use in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I have seen some people enter awards, and I have seen them actually, with a good marketing strategy, milk that award for more than what the winner did. Like the winner just kind of like, one post, I won, congratulations me. But, being a finalist, people have really gone to town and repurposed parts of their application and, really, I guess, put themselves out there and utilize that a bit more of a marketing strategy rather than just I entered to win, I won. I really feel that yeah, there's a lot of people who miss opportunities even when they do win. So it's very interesting to watch.
It is like, I think there are so many steps along the way of the journey of entering an award, like you say, that you can really milk, even just being nominated. If someone nominates you for an award, sharing that is a great sort of success story to share. Becoming a, finalist, that's a great story to share. And it sort of builds this success halo around you and your business. And I think so often we're all so busy anyway. I remember when I started entering myself in awards rather than just writing award entries for my clients and sharing the fact that I was a finalist or that I was entering, on my social. And then I would run into people through my business networks or speak to them and they'd say, wow, you're winning all these awards. And I'm thinking, I've not won a single award yet. I hadn't at that stage. I'm lucky enough that I have now. But it was just this sort of idea of success that was happening around me and my business that people could see. And that's just a really positive thing. People see, okay, you believe in yourself enough to put yourself out there and enter. That's a really great sort of sign of the confidence you have in your own abilities. But it also, for me as an awards writer, is really handy to be able to say, and I enter myself in awards. So I know exactly how hard it can be to write about yourself and your business and to say that you're awesome. We all struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's so great because it's a bit like a marketer who doesn't market. It's like,
Yes.
are you keeping up with best practice? So entering them yourself, yeah, obviously you learn a little bit more about your business, but also about the awards process as well. There is so many awards to choose from, and I know before we press record, you were mentioning, you had a little document and how many there actually was in that particular document, which I'm sure you'll share with my listener. But how do you know which ones to choose? Like, really, I guess if you look at your Instagram feed, for instance, or type in hashtag awards Australia, you will find a gazillion of them, very niched, very broad. How do you know which ones to choose?
Yeah, it can be really hard because unfortunately not all awards are created equal. And,
Hmm.
being part of behind the scenes running an award program, and last year I got to help run an award program as well. Like a lot of work goes into them.
Yeah.
And some of the best award programs are actually free or low cost to enter. I'm always a little bit wary of the awards that cost a huge amount to enter and they can feel a bit pay to play kind of thing. Like, you have to enter and it's going to cost you $1,000 just to enter. And it feels like, okay. And then is that really a transparent process with great judging, or is it just a bit of a money-making exercise for someone somewhere? I mean, that
Yep.
said, I think it's really natural that there often is an entry fee because so much work goes into making
It
them.
does. Yes.
It really does. So yeah, it can be hard to find the awards to enter that have good credibility as well, because unfortunately there are some out there that have the reputation of maybe not being as credible as others. So if in doubt, I would ask within your network, ask people who may have entered in the past, would you recommend the process again? If they've been established for a while, they've probably got some great processes in place. But yeah, I think all awards do have their place, and I think not all awards are sort of, not everyone's eligible for every award. So I would also warn you off wasting time on entering an award that you were never going to be in the running for to start with. Unfortunately, some of them do have really strict parameters around who can enter. Some of them, I've recently helped someone with one of the AFR lists that gets put together, and you have to have a team of at least 20 to even apply for that, and you have to meet a certain standard of turnover. So some of them do have some kind of disqualifying factors that it pays to read the fine print before you go through the effort of entering. Others are a little bit more everyone's welcome, and they'll have things like best new business categories for those businesses that are in their first 1 or 2 years, so that you
Mhm.
are maybe on a bit more of an equal playing field rather than, you know, going up
Yeah.
against well-established businesses, which can be a little bit daunting. But I think if in doubt, it pays to ask. And just get a feel for what's out there, or contact the organizers. And if you're not clear on processes, or you know who's actually judging this, are there real judges involved, or is it just a sort of luck of the draw? You know, and some of them will have really, really thorough processes where you'll have to be interviewed by judges, or you'll have to submit videos of yourself and you know, jump through a lot of hoops. You know, they're all very, very different. So if in doubt, ask. But yes, I do have an awards calendar that lives on my website that's free to access for anyone, and we have more than 100 programs on that, and we're adding to it all the time. So there's a huge amount of awards out there. We can all find something to enter, I'm sure.
And are they mainly Australian, or are they international awards that you have listed on there as well?
So we're focusing on Australian award programs.
Yeah.
There are a
Okay.
couple of global ones on there, but it's mainly Australian programs. And I always say to people, you know, my disclaimer is it's not perfect. There's definitely some things missing, and we're finding new awards to add all of the time, because there are so many kind of levels of awards as well. You know, every region will have some kind of local business awards that you could consider entering. And then you've got the sort of maybe statewide options and the national awards. You know, there are so many different things out there. So we're adding to them all of the time. Nearly every industry will have some kind of industry body running a specialist award program for them, whether you're a real estate agent or a builder, or, you know, an aged care home operator. There are just so many different programs out there. So we are adding to that all of the time. And yeah, trying to keep it. It's actually a live spreadsheet. So when you access it, you know, it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't have fancy colors and fonts and branding, but it does what it says on the tin. So you can go through it and look at it by what's coming up in the next 3 months, which deadlines are coming, so that I can get prepared. Because there is nothing worse than seeing your competitors start to show off about being a finalist in an award and thinking, didn't even know that was happening. So yeah, I'm trying to help
And I
people
have to
in that
have to
position.
Yeah, and I have
Yeah.
to say that's happened to me before. I think that last year I got a little bit awards outed. I was kind of like, you know, when about October hit, I was just like, no more awards. Like, you know, I was kind of over entering and things like that. And then there was one that popped up. I think it was about November, and I saw not one of my competitors, one of my friends. And I was like, oh, that's a good award. I didn't see that one come across my socials. I was like, darn. So I think I wrote it in the calendar
Yeah.
to have a bit of a look at this year to see what that was. So yeah, very interesting. But I think the fact that there are so many awards adds credibility to why awards should be perhaps part of your marketing strategy as well.
Mm.
People wouldn't run them if they weren't credible, especially, you know, if I
Yeah.
take ours, like ours is the Australian Rural Business Awards, like it's free to enter. It's not a money making program for us. So obviously we have to believe that this will help shine a spotlight on rural and regional businesses. And yeah, everything like other people who run awards would be the same.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. I think the majority have the best intentions behind them. So I think, you know, if in doubt, just go for it, because every experience you're going to learn something from, you know. And I think once you've entered one award, although I do sometimes wish that we lived in a world where every award program had the exact same entry form with the same number of questions and the same word counts. But, you know, I know that that's a fantasy, but, you know, everyone has a different process and a different set of questions to answer. But you will find there are certain kinds of questions that come up, you know, again and again across different programs. You know, even just being able to talk about, you know, what are your biggest business successes from the last 12 months, or what's a challenge that you've had to overcome, or, you know, how do you approach your marketing for your business, or how do you keep your customers happy? You know, there are lots of sort of questions that will come up in different forms across various programs. And I think even entering awards can be a great exercise in really nailing your 100-word profile or bio for your
Yeah.
business, because so
Yeah.
many of them ask for that. And if you don't have one, I always say to people, that's a great thing to have up your sleeve, not just for awards, but for any profile raising opportunity, because often, something might land in your lap. Someone might invite you on their podcast, or you might get an opportunity to speak to a journalist and they ask you for a profile to send through about you or your business. It's really nice to have that to hand so you can just quickly flick it through rather than just sitting there looking at a blank page and wondering what to write.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, that's so good. Um, so profile building, like obviously, PR comes into that, and awards and pitching and things like that. So for my listener, what can they do today to start building their profile? Do you have any like one or two tips? Because if they're kind of listening to this and thinking, yeah, okay, Erin and Jan have convinced me I need to do some more profile building. Where do they start? What's your tip?
So start small. I think that is something can be a little bit intimidating about things like PR and profile raising, is that we think we suddenly have to be, across every media outlet and, be in the spotlight and be a household name. That's definitely not true. We all have to start somewhere. So start small. So
Mhm.
things like being a guest on podcasts can be really impactful. Even if it's not a hugely well-known podcast, every podcast, if they have listeners, those listeners are really actively engaged, and having
Mhm.
you in their ears is so powerful. So thank you again for having me on your podcast, Jen. But yeah, start small. And like I sort of just alluded to, have a bio ready so that when you do contact someone and you need to give them that really quick sort of elevator pitch via an email, or you meet them at an event, be able to tell them who you are and why they might be interested in listening to what you have to say. Have a couple of paragraphs ready to go along those lines. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. I know a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn, but if you are going to be doing some profile raising, and you're starting to maybe connect with podcast hosts or journalists, or even looking at entering awards, it's great to have an active LinkedIn presence where you are sharing your own content, even just having a profile that's up to date. I've recently, quite often come across people who have quite big profiles or quite big roles within their work. And then you go to their LinkedIn profile and they haven't posted in 2 years and they don't even have an up-to-date bio on there. It's just maybe a line or two that they clearly wrote and forgot about. So having that is really powerful, because LinkedIn is actually a great way to boost your SEO as well. For most of us, if you put your own name into Google, LinkedIn's often one of the top results that comes back. So have that presence on there. And I think it's a great way to connect with people as well. So, being in the PR game, I'm often contacting journalists and pitching to them. So connecting with them on LinkedIn is a great place to start. And if there is, maybe by starting small, it might be that you identify just one media outlet that you would love to share your story in or share your expertise with. So look at who writes for them, who's on their editorial team, connect with those people on LinkedIn if you can, and then really just support their work and, comment on the articles they're sharing, sort of build that relationship in a gentle, non-stalkery, creepy way, but just kind of get yourself on their sort of radar, so that then when you do make the pitch to them about the story idea that you have, you can show that you have been paying attention to what they're talking about, and here's why you'd be a great fit for their audience and their publication or their outlet or their podcast. So yeah, start small, but just start.
Yeah, yeah. That's great advice. And just adding, I guess, to the connection, certainly whether you're connecting with these people on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. Facebook's not so easy, I guess, but certainly Instagram or LinkedIn, send a personalized message with it. Like, make it personal. Just don't press that connect button or that follow button. Do send them a little message, because if you want to stand out, they probably get a lot of people wanting to connect with them for that particular purpose. So, stand out from the crowd, send a little personalized message with it as well. And that will definitely help with the connection and, I guess create that human connection with them straight away. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so true. I think you'd be surprised how many kind of, I guess, high profile people in the media or, online are actually really open to those kinds of connections. And I've had great success doing that, like just sharing
Yeah.
with them. I'm connecting with you because I really love listening to you or reading your work, and be able to name maybe a podcast episode you've listened to or an article they wrote recently that you really enjoyed. Really personalize it if you can, because I think PRs, we sometimes get a bad name amongst the media and journalists for just blanket pitching the same story, or sending out the sort of to dear blank or dear first name, and then the generic pitch. If any journalist is these days is just going to delete. It takes a while sometimes to get the opportunity. And I guess, like with any relationship, give it time, build that connection, let it happen over time. And if you do send, if you do get your courage together and send off an email to someone with a story idea, there is so much power in following up. So don't just send it and forget about it and think, oh, well, that was never going to happen. Wait 3 to 5 days, a week, and follow up in a friendly way. But just, did you receive my email? No problem. If it's not of interest, I just thought I would check. And so often that's when I'll get the green light from a journalist. Yes, I did. I've just been really busy. Thanks for following up, because I'd forgotten about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and book that in for next week. So following up is really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really great tip. I think we do, especially if we're perhaps questioning whether we are the expert to be talking about this, or, we're a little bit introverted. We kind of think, oh, no, they clearly didn't like me or my article or something. So, but it's not about that. It's about the fact that they've probably got 50,000 other things on their plate, just like the rest of us. And so following up is a really great tip. Erin, this has been such a great chat. I think we've covered so much today. I'm sure my listener is just quite excited about what it could look like for them. But if you've said something and they want to get in touch with you to learn a little bit more about that, where's the best place to get in touch with you?
So no surprises, LinkedIn is a platform of choice for me, and I am always open to new connections and DMs from people who come across me. So I'm Erin Huckle, and just find me on LinkedIn that way. Otherwise, my business is Chuckle Communications. So I have a website, chucklecommunications.com. And just Google Chuckle Communications or Erin Huckle and you'll find me. But yeah, I'm always open to new connections or answering questions. Just get in touch and drop me a line.
Yeah, beautiful. I will have those links in the show notes for sure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been so good to chat PR and awards, and really, I guess, giving my listener just a little nudge that they might need to raise their profile a little bit. So thank you so much for giving your time today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. It's been really fun.
I really hope you enjoyed that chat with Erin, and she has made you start thinking about building your profile and making it a priority in your business. Of course, the links to all Erin's socials and her website are in the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/250. Erin does hang out in my Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. So if you have any questions, you can head over there and you can tag her in the questions. I'm sure she will be more than willing to help and answer any queries you might have. Of course, if you want to have a chat with me and find out whether profile building is something you should do as part of your marketing strategy and how does that fit in once you've worked with Erin and learnt how to build your profile, or how had Erin help you build your profile, then of course you can book a discovery call with me as well, and we can chat about your marketing strategy around that. But that's all for episode 250. Thank you for celebrating with me. If you want to give me a small gift, you can always go and leave me a rating and a review wherever you're listening to that. That would be a super cool gift to get for 250 episodes. One of the goals of mine, as you may be aware, are to reach more people with this podcast, and you can help me achieve that by leaving a rating and a review. So thank you so much in advance. I will see you next week, of course, for episode 251. Thanks again to Kate Toon and her new book, 6 Figures in School Hours. You can find out more about that and the book by going to katetoon.com and having a look for her 6 Figures in School Hours book there. Thank you so much, Kate, for sponsoring today's episode. And just a little, I guess, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Just a little bit of information that you may not have asked for. Erin Huckle is actually helping Kate Toon with her PR around her new book, which is a little bit super cool that Kate's podcast sponsorship just happened to coincide with Erin's interview. All right. But in the meantime, while you're looking at all those things, while you're checking out Kate's book, while you're checking out Erin's amazing offerings and thinking about awards and profile building, come and get social with me on social. You can, of course, find me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.